The massive crystalline structure of the Grand Assembly floated in the void between star systems, its translucent walls pulsing with soft blue light. Inside the enormous chamber, representatives from dozens of alien civilizations gathered around a central holographic projector that displayed images from a small blue planet called Earth. Laughter filled the air as primitive human spacecraft appeared on the screens. The vessels looked like crude metal tubes with fire shooting from their backs, crawling slowly through space at speeds that made the assembled aliens shake their heads in disbelief. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire stood tall on his crystalline legs, his body sparkling like a living diamond. He pointed one of his forearms at the pathetic display and spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Look at these sad metal boxes," he said with obvious disgust. "They still burn chemicals to push themselves through space like cavemen making fire." The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. The Zephyrians were known across the galaxy for their beautiful crystal ships that could cross vast distances in mere days. Their technology was so advanced that they considered most other species to be children playing with toys. Beside Veltar, a strange creature that looked like it was made of purple mist floated silently. This was Delegate Morthak from the Vorthan Collective, a race of beings who could read minds and speak directly into other people's thoughts. His mental voice echoed inside everyone's heads like whispers in an empty cave. "Their brains are as backward as their machines," Morthak's thoughts spread through the chamber. "We tried to scan their minds from across the galaxy. They have no quantum awareness, no ability to connect their thoughts with others. They are like isolated islands of consciousness floating alone in darkness." More laughter erupted from the crowd. The idea of beings who could not share thoughts directly seemed almost impossible to the telepathic species present. At the far end of the chamber, Commander Thex of the Nexus Coalition processed data streams with mechanical precision. Half of his body was organic flesh, while the other half was advanced machinery that could calculate millions of possibilities in seconds. His cybernetic eye glowed red as numbers and statistics flowed across his vision. "Computer analysis complete," Thex announced in a voice that sounded like a machine trying to imitate speech. "Human maximum speed, 0.12% of light speed. Time required to reach nearest galactic outpost, 847 standard years." The chamber erupted in even louder laughter. Several aliens fell from their hovering platforms, clutching their sides or whatever passed for their sides in their particular biology. 800 years to cross space that we travel in 3 days, wheezed Ambassador Kixtau from the Merchant Guild. They would die of old age before reaching their nearest neighbor. "Assuming they even figure out how to navigate beyond their own sun," added General Vox from the Warrior Caste. "Their ships probably get lost trying to find their own moon." The official recorder of the Galactic Council, a small green creature with 12 eyes, dutifully entered Earth's information into the massive database that contained details about every known world. His tiny fingers moved quickly across a holographic keyboard as he typed the classification that would determine Earth's fate. "Species designation, human," he muttered to himself. "Technological level, primitive combustion-based propulsion. Intelligence rating, basic tool users. Threat assessment, 0. Classification, Class C developing world with minimal strategic value." The classification appeared in glowing letters above the chamber for all to see. A Class C rating meant that Earth was considered barely worth paying attention to. Such worlds were typically left alone until more advanced civilizations needed their resources. Ambassador Veltar raised his arms to call for attention. The chattering and laughter gradually died down as all eyes turned to him. "Fellow representatives," he began in his musical voice, "I believe we have spent enough time discussing this unremarkable little world. However, I do have a practical suggestion." He gestured toward the images of Earth with its green continents and blue oceans. "While these humans are clearly too primitive to be of any immediate concern, their planet does possess useful minerals and water. I propose we schedule Earth for resource extraction in approximately 50 standard cycles." Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. 50 cycles would give the humans time to do more mining and gathering, essentially preparing their planet's resources for easier collection by their future galactic overlords. "The motion seems reasonable," agreed Counselor Zeph from the Trade Federation. "By then they might have extracted enough rare metals to make the operation profitable. We can simply take what we need and relocate the remaining humans to a smaller world where they can continue their primitive existence without bothering anyone." "Do we even need to relocate them?" asked General Vox with a cruel smile. "Primitive species often do not survive contact with superior civilizations. Natural selection tends to handle these situations automatically." The official recorder looked up from his work. Shall I enter this as a formal motion for vote? Yes, Veltar replied. All in favor of scheduling Earth for resource extraction in 50 cycles? Arms, tentacles, claws, and various other appendages rose throughout the chamber. Not a single representative voted against the motion. To them, Earth was nothing more than an unguarded warehouse full of useful materials, inhabited by creatures barely more advanced than animals. Motion carried unanimously, announced the recorder. Earth extraction scheduled for 50 cycles from now. The assembly began to disperse as representatives returned to their ships and their own important affairs. None of them gave Earth another thought as they departed, confident that they had properly catalogued another insignificant world in the vast galaxy. 300 feet beneath the mountains of Korea, Dr. Kim Miho wiped sweat from his forehead as he made tiny changes to a machine that hummed with incredible power. The underground laboratory stretched out like a hidden city, filled with equipment that seemed to bend reality itself. Bright blue energy danced between metal rings the size of buildings, creating doorways to nowhere. Miho had been working for 16 hours straight, but his eyes still sparkled with excitement. Every few minutes he would turn a dial or press a button, and the energy patterns would shift and change. He was trying to make the impossible happen, and today it was finally working. The space tunnel is staying open, called Dr. Park Yuna from across the enormous room. She sat behind a wall of computer screens that showed numbers and graphs moving like living things. It has been stable for 47 seconds now. That is our longest time yet. Admiral Lee Donghyun stood behind thick glass windows, watching everything with sharp eyes. He wore a simple military uniform, but there were no medals or badges that would tell anyone his real rank. For 23 years, he had been overseeing the most secret project in human history. In the center of the laboratory, a metal sphere the size of a basketball floated in the air above a platform. Suddenly, the air around it began to twist and spin like water going down a drain. A hole appeared in empty space, glowing with soft blue light. The sphere dropped into the hole and vanished completely. On the other side of the room, another hole opened in the air. The same metal sphere fell out and landed on a different platform with a soft thud. It had traveled across the laboratory instantly, without moving through the space in between. Perfect, Admiral Lee said quietly. How soon can we test this with a real ship? Miho looked at his instruments and smiled. The quantum drives for our first vessels are being finished right now. Once we install them, our ships will be able to jump from here to anywhere in the galaxy in just a few seconds. The alien races think we are still using chemical rockets like fireworks. Dr. Yuna pressed some buttons on her control panel, and new images appeared on the main screen. The footage showed human spaceships moving slowly through space, looking clumsy and weak. The ships fired simple weapons that barely scratched their targets, and their engines left trails of fire behind them like ancient rockets. This is from last week's military exercise, Yuna explained. Our pilots are pretending to be much worse than they really are. Every alien spy satellite watching us sees exactly what we want them to see. Admiral Lee nodded with satisfaction. The deception had been perfect. While alien civilizations laughed at human technology, the real human fleet was being built in secret bases hidden around the solar system. The ships they were creating looked nothing like the crude vessels the aliens had seen. Through the laboratory's windows, Admiral Lee could see into massive underground hangars where sleek spacecraft sat waiting. These ships had smooth, curved hulls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They looked more like living creatures than machines with no visible engines or weapons ports. Along their sides, words were written in both Korean and English. Unity, Determination, Hidden Dragon, New Soul, Rising Phoenix. Tell me about the weapons, Admiral Lee said. Miho walked over to another section of the laboratory where a different team of scientists was working. We have learned how to make energy beams that can bend space itself. Instead of just hitting the enemy ship, our weapons can make the space around it fold inward. The ship gets crushed by the universe itself. And our defenses? The Admiral asked. Our shields do not just block attacks, Dr. Yuna replied from her computer station. They can make our ships slip sideways into a different layer of reality. Enemy weapons pass right through us as if we were ghosts. A younger scientist named Dr. Choi Jae-won approached them carrying a tablet computer. Admiral, we have received the latest intelligence reports from our observers. The Zephyrian Empire is planning to send a conquest fleet to Earth within the next few months. Admiral Lee showed no surprise. How many ships? Approximately 300 of their crystal dreadnoughts. Their commanders are treating it as a routine operation. They expect to defeat all human resistance within hours. Good, the Admiral said calmly. Let them come with their arrogance intact. The more confident they are, the bigger their shock will be. Dr. Miho returned to his quantum tunnel controls and began preparing another test. We will be ready for them. Our pilots have been training in secret for years. They know how to fight enemies who think they are superior. What about the other alien races? Dr. Yuna asked. Will they interfere? Admiral Lee looked at the images of Earth from space, where primitive-looking human ships continued their fake patrols. The other races see us as harmless animals. They will probably watch our conquest as entertainment. Some of them are already making bets about how quickly we will surrender. They have no idea what is coming, Choi said with a grin. The Admiral walked back to the observation window and looked at the hidden fleet. Each ship represented years of secret research and development. Humanity had taken alien dismissal and turned it into their greatest advantage. While their enemies built bigger and more obvious weapons, humans had learned to master the basic forces of reality itself. In a few weeks, the galaxy will learn that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake in their history, Admiral Lee said. We will show them that the most dangerous enemy is the one you never see coming. The darkness of space suddenly filled with brilliant flashes of light as 300 massive ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Zephyrian war fleet had arrived, and their crystal vessels sparkled like deadly jewels against the black backdrop of stars. Each ship was enormous, stretching for miles and gleaming with a cold, beautiful light that promised destruction. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, a magnificent crystal palace that could hold an entire human city inside its transparent walls. His four arms crossed behind his back as he watched the primitive planet Earth grow larger on his viewing screens. After the long journey through hyperspace, he was eager to finish this simple conquest and return home with tales of easy victory. Sir, we are detecting human vessels approaching, reported his tactical officer, a younger Zephyrian whose crystal body pulsed with nervous energy. They appear to be attempting to intercept us. Veltar laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Show me these brave defenders. The main screen displayed images of human spacecraft rushing toward the Zephyrian fleet. The ships looked exactly as pathetic as the intelligence reports had described, crude metal tubes with primitive weapons and engines that left trails of fire behind them. They moved slowly and clumsily, like insects trying to attack eagles. Begin the engagement, Veltar ordered casually. Let us demonstrate the difference between their toy ships and real military power. The battle began with a spectacular display of lights and explosions. Human vessels fired everything they had at the crystal dreadnoughts, missiles, energy beams and projectile weapons that bounced harmlessly off Zephyrian shields. In response, the alien ships released devastating energy bursts that tore through human hulls like paper. Captain Han Jaiwu commanded the human vessel Inchan as it fired desperately at a Zephyrian destroyer. The alien ship barely noticed the attack, its crystal hull absorbing the human weapons without even dimming its glow. Around him, other human ships exploded in balls of fire or limped away with severe damage. Captain, we need to retreat, shouted his weapons officer, Lieutenant Kim Soyeon. Their shields are too strong for our guns. Fall back, Jaiwu ordered, but he spoke quietly to his communications officer. Send the coded message to all ships. Operation Broken Wing is in effect. Throughout the human fleet, ship captains received the secret signal. They began firing their own weapons at their hulls, creating fake damage and releasing clouds of debris to make their retreat look more desperate than it really was. Explosion charges hidden inside their ships went off, making it appear that Zephyrian weapons had caused terrible harm. Humans destroyed, 47 vessels, reported the Zephyrian tactical officer with satisfaction. Our casualties, 0. Enemy forces are fleeing in panic. Commander Veltar watched the pathetic human retreat with growing amusement. The surviving human ships limped away trailing smoke and sparks, their hulls blackened and their formations completely broken. Some vessels spun helplessly through space as if their engines had failed. Exactly as predicted, Veltar said, settling into his command throne made of living crystal. These primitives cannot even damage our shields. Their weapons are like throwing pebbles at a mountain. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system. His voice carried the cold authority of a superior species addressing inferior creatures. Attention, primitive humans of Earth, he announced. I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your pathetic defense fleet has been crushed with embarrassing ease. You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally, or we will reduce your cities to ash and glass. Your weapons cannot harm us, and your ships are toys compared to our might. The message spread across Earth in minutes. Human news networks showed footage of the space battle, carefully edited to hide the true capabilities of their ships. To viewers on Earth, it looked like a genuine disaster. Parents gathered their children close as reporters spoke of impending doom. But far across the galaxy, the invasion was being watched for very different reasons. Alien news networks had turned the conquest of Earth into entertainment programming. Commentators made jokes about human desperation while gambling establishments opened betting pools on various aspects of the invasion. "How long will the humans hold out?" asked Zixtal, host of the popular show, Galactic Conquests Weekly. "Most experts are betting on complete surrender within 12 hours. Some optimists think the humans might last a full day before giving up. The odds heavily favored quick human surrender. After seeing their space fleet destroyed so easily, most alien observers assumed that Earth would capitulate immediately rather than face orbital bombardment of their cities." Back in space, Captain Han Jaiwu guided his damaged ship toward Earth's moon, where hidden repair facilities waited. His bridge crew worked hard to maintain their act, groaning and holding fake injuries while secretly smiling at their performance. "How did we do, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Park Minsu from his engineering station. "Perfect," Jaiwu replied quietly. "The aliens completely believe we are beaten. Our real ships are still hidden, and the enemy thinks they have already won." The Zephyrian fleet moved majestically toward Earth's orbit, their crystal hulls catching and reflecting the light from the sun. Commander Veltar felt the satisfaction of a job nearly completed. In a few hours he would begin bombarding the human homeworld, and this primitive species would learn their place in the galactic order. "Prepare orbital bombardment platforms," he commanded. "Target their major population centers. We will give them a demonstration of real power." The trap was set perfectly. The Zephyrians believed they faced a broken, defeated enemy who had no choice but to surrender or die. They had no idea that Earth's real defenders were still hidden, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal humanity's true strength. Commander Veltar stood confidently on his crystal bridge as his 300 warships moved into position around Earth. The primitive planet hung before them like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. His tactical officers were preparing the orbital bombardment systems that would reduce human cities to smoking craters within hours. "Target the largest population centers first," Veltar commanded with casual cruelty. "We will show these primitives what happens when they refuse to surrender to their betters." The Zephyrian fleet arranged itself in a perfect attack formation, their crystal hulls gleaming with deadly purpose. Each ship charged its main weapons, preparing to rain destruction on the helpless world below. Veltar was already composing his victory report when something impossible happened. The empty space around his fleet suddenly began to tear apart like fabric being ripped by invisible hands. Brilliant blue-white cracks appeared in the darkness, growing wider and brighter with each passing second. The very structure of reality seemed to be breaking down. "Sir, we are detecting massive spatial distortions," his sensor officer reported with growing panic. "Energy readings are off all known scales. This should not be possible." Veltar stared in shock as the rifts in space expanded into swirling portals of pure energy. Through these impossible doorways something was coming. The first ship that emerged was unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek and dark, with curves that seemed to bend light around them. It was followed by another, then another, until hundreds of mysterious vessels poured through the quantum gateways. "What are those ships?" Veltar demanded, but his crew had no answers. The human fleet materialized around the Zephyrian armada in perfect tactical formation. Every alien vessel found itself surrounded by sleek predators that had appeared from nowhere. The ships moved with fluid grace, positioning themselves with mathematical precision that spoke of superior technology and training. Suddenly, every communication screen on every Zephyrian ship activated at once. The face of a human military officer appeared, speaking with calm authority that cut through the alien's shock like a blade. "Commander Veltar," Admiral Lee Donghyun said with a slight smile, "you were saying something about primitive humans?" Veltar felt his crystal body go cold. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be centuries behind Zephyrian technology. Their ships burned chemicals for fuel and crawled through space at pathetic speeds. Yet here was a fleet that had mastered dimensional travel and appeared from quantum portals. "Attack!" Veltar screamed in panic. "Destroy them all." The Zephyrian dreadnoughts opened fire with their most powerful weapons, releasing streams of energy that could vaporize asteroids. But the human ships moved like ghosts, fading in and out of existence as the attacks passed harmlessly through them. Some vessels seemed to slip sideways into different layers of reality, becoming translucent shadows that could not be touched. "Our weapons are passing through them," reported the tactical officer in disbelief. They are phasing in and out of normal space. The human response was swift and devastating. Weapons unlike anything in the galactic arsenal struck back at the Crystal Fleet. Instead of simple energy beams, the humans fired weapons that twisted the fabric of space itself. Reality bent and folded around Zephyrian ships, crushing their hulls with the weight of distorted physics. Captain Park Sung-min commanded the human vessel Hidden Dragon as it materialized directly behind Veltar's flagship. The Zephyrian commander spun around in shock, but it was too late. A single precise beam of twisted spacetime struck his ship's engines, causing them to implode without damaging the rest of the vessel. Engine core disabled, Sung-min reported calmly to Admiral Lee. The flagship is dead in space. All around the battlefield, the mighty Zephyrian armada found itself helpless against human technology that defied every law of physics they understood. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were being disabled with surgical precision by weapons that bent reality itself. 300 feet beneath Korea, Dr. Kim Miho watched the battle through quantum sensors that could observe events across the galaxy in real time. His fingers danced across control panels as he maintained the portal network that allowed human ships to appear anywhere they needed to be. Quantum containment field is active and stable, he reported to Admiral Lee through their secret communication system. The enemy fleet cannot escape to hyperspace. All dimensional pathways are blocked. The Zephyrian ships tried desperately to retreat, but found that space itself had become a prison. Every time they attempted to open a hyperspace gateway, human technology interfered with the process. They were trapped in normal space with an enemy that could strike from any direction. Commander Veltar watched in horror as his invincible armada was systematically disabled by the species he had dismissed as primitive animals. Human ships phased through his formations like hunting wolves, striking with precision and vanishing before his weapons could respond. Surrender transmission incoming on all frequencies, his communications officer announced with a trembling voice. Admiral Lee's face appeared again on every screen in the Zephyrian fleet. His expression was calm but firm, carrying the authority of someone who held absolute power over his enemies. Commander Veltar, your fleet is surrounded and outmatched. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to galactic conventions for prisoners of war. Continue fighting, and you will discover why humanity survived long enough to master quantum mechanics while your empire grew fat and complacent. Around the battlefield, Zephyrian ships began powering down their weapons one by one. Their crystal hulls dimmed as they realized the futility of resistance against an enemy that could bend the laws of physics to their will. Veltar looked at his tactical displays showing human ships surrounding his fleet like apex predators circling wounded prey. The species he had planned to exterminate in a few hours had instead trapped his entire armada with technology that made Zephyrian science look like children playing with sticks. Power down all weapons, he commanded quietly. Send our surrender signal to the human fleet. The galaxy would never be the same. The great crystal halls of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations sat in complete silence, staring at the humans standing calmly at the center of their assembly. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian Empire's mighty fleet had surrendered to primitive Earth, and the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. Dr. Kim Miho stood before the most powerful beings in known space, wearing a simple black suit that made him look more like a businessman than the scientist who had changed everything. In his hands, he held a small device no bigger than a smartphone, but the aliens around him knew it contained technology that defied their understanding of physics. Honored representatives, Miho said in clear, calm English that was automatically translated for every species present. 23 years ago, you met in this very chamber and laughed at humanity. You called us primitives who burned chemicals to crawl through space like ancient barbarians. He pressed a button on his device. The air in front of him began to shimmer and twist, forming a perfect circle of blue-white energy. Through the portal, the assembled aliens could see the surface of Earth's moon, complete with human bases that sparkled with advanced technology. While you grew comfortable with your superior attitudes, Miho continued, we learned to fold space itself. Several alien representatives gasped or made their species equivalent sounds of amazement. The portal was perfectly stable, showing no energy fluctuations or dimensional instabilities that should have made such technology impossible. Ambassador Veltar stood up from his seat in the prisoners' section. The once proud Zephyrian commander looked smaller now, his crystal body dim with shame and defeat. He had been exchanged for diplomatic purposes, traded back to the council as a gesture of human goodwill. Honored colleagues, Veltar said in his wind chime voice, I must speak the truth about what I witnessed. I underestimated the human species completely. They do not think like we do. Their approach to technology, to warfare, to the very nature of reality itself is fundamentally different from ours. The telepathic representative of the Vorthan collective, Morthak, floated forward with his purple mist body rippling with confusion. His mental voice reached every mind in the chamber, but for the first time in centuries, it carried uncertainty rather than arrogance. We attempted to scan human consciousness during the battle, Morthak admitted. We could not penetrate their thoughts. Quantum fields surround their minds, protecting them from telepathic intrusion. They have found a way to shield their very souls from our abilities. General Vox of the Warrior Caste slammed his armored fist on his platform. This is impossible. No species develops quantum consciousness without centuries of mental evolution. Dr. Miho smiled quietly. You assumed that consciousness had to evolve naturally. We chose to enhance it artificially. Every human ship is crewed by individuals whose minds are quantum linked to their vessels. They think and react at the speed of light itself. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. An enemy who could think and coordinate at quantum speeds would always be several steps ahead of conventional biological consciousness. The humans had not just developed better technology, they had evolved themselves to use it perfectly. On the far side of the galaxy, Admiral Lee Donghyun stood on the bridge of humanity's newest flagship, the New Soul. Through the ship's quantum viewports, he could see stars that had been impossibly distant just months ago. Now they were potential destinations for human exploration fleets. Admiral, reported Captain Han Jaiwu from his exploration vessel, we have completed our survey of the Andromeda border sectors. 17 habitable worlds confirmed, no hostile alien presence detected. We can begin establishing our first interstellar colonies within the month. Lee nodded with satisfaction. The same Captain Han who had pretended to retreat in panic during the Zephyrian invasion now led exploration fleets that could survey entire regions of space in days rather than centuries. Human ships appeared at distant stars, conducted detailed surveys and returned home for dinner. Back at the Galactic Council, Dr. Park Yuna was addressing questions from alien scientists who could barely comprehend her explanations. She had established joint research facilities where the galaxy's most advanced minds struggled to understand even the basics of human quantum technology. The key insight, Yuna explained patiently to a group of Nexus Coalition engineers, is that space and time are not fixed. They can be manipulated like any other material, but you need to approach the problem from a completely different angle than conventional physics suggests. The alien scientists took notes frantically, but their faces showed the confusion of students trying to learn mathematics from a language they did not speak. Human science had leaped so far ahead that other species could barely follow the concepts, let alone duplicate the technology. Throughout the galaxy, the news of humanity's rise spread like wildfire. Species that had planned to exploit Earth now sent desperate diplomatic missions offering trade agreements and alliance proposals. The Merchant Guild, which had been preparing to claim Earth's resources, instead found themselves begging for access to human technology. Dr. Miho closed his demonstration portal and looked around the silent assembly hall. The galaxy has spent millennia believing that slow, steady advancement was the only path to progress. You grew comfortable with your superiority and stopped pushing the boundaries of what was possible. He paused, letting his words sink in. Humanity faced extinction, so we chose to transcend our limitations rather than accept them. We hope you will learn from our example rather than repeat your mistakes. As the council session ended and representatives began filing out to contact their homeworlds, the balance of galactic power had fundamentally shifted. The species that had once laughed at primitive humans now found themselves students of the very people they had planned to conquer. Humanity's quiet laughter echoed through the cosmos, confident and patient, as Earth's children prepared to walk among the stars as equals to any civilization that had ever existed.